deck tilts, 20 degrees to port. Steel groaning, water rushing into compartments below, the sound of metal tearing, slow and inevitable, like the earth splitting open. Commander Everett Brennan stands on the bridge of USS Samuel B. Roberts. His hands grip the rail, not shaking, steady. He counts heads on the deck below. 11 men are already dead in the forward engine room. 78 are running toward the lifeboats. The sea is on fire in places, oil slicks burning. Smoke everywhere, thick and black, mixing with the chemical fog from their own smoke generators. A Japanese heavy cruiser sits 7,000 yards to starboard. She's turning, her guns tracking. 8-inch rifles, they've been hitting Roberts for 20 minutes now. Systematic, methodical, the way you'd butcher livestock. The forward 5-inch gun mount is still firing. No electricity, no fire control computer. Just men cranking the traverse wheel by hand, loading shells manually, aiming with their eyes and whatever geometry they remember from high school. Brennan watches the gun crew. 6 men when the battle started, 2 now. They're still shooting. He's 36 years old, born in Tacoma, Washington, son of a foreman at the shipyard. This morning, 2 hours and 37 minutes ago, he made a decision that every tactical manual in the United States Navy says was wrong. He turned his ship toward the enemy instead of away. Now his ship is dying. The executive officer appears at his elbow. Lieutenant Commander Hayes, face black with smoke, blood on his sleeve from a shell fragment that grazed him 20 minutes back. "Skipper, we have to go. Now." Brennan doesn't answer. He's counting. 78 men on deck, minus the wounded they already got into rafts, minus the gun crews still firing. The numbers aren't adding up. Too many missing. 90 missing. 90 men who won't be going home. The cruiser fires again. The shell screams overhead, passes through what's left of the radar mast, punches a hole in the smokestack. Doesn't explode, just keeps going. Disappears into the smoke behind them. Hayes grabs his arm. "Skipper." Brennan nods, once. He looks at the pilot house. The helm is unmanned. The radar repeater sparking, throwing blue-white light across the bulkheads. The deck inclines so steep now he can barely stand. He hears it. The groan of the keel, the sound a ship makes when she's about to roll. "Abandon ship," he says. His voice is quiet, calm, like he's ordering coffee. Hayes repeats it into the sound-powered phone circuit. The order goes out. The men on deck move faster now. Organized, they practiced this, drilled it in calm seas off California. Brennan made them drill it until they could do it in their sleep. Wounded first, then gun crews, then damage control, then officers. Brennan is the last. He takes one more look around the bridge. This ship, 306 feet long, 1,350 tons, named after coxswain Robert Samuel B. Roberts, who died at Guadalcanal, covering the evacuation of Marines, died because he stayed when he could have run. Brennan understands that now. Hayes is already climbing over the rail. "Come on, Skipper." Brennan follows. They jump together. 20 feet down into the Philippine Sea. The water is warm, 85 degrees, oil on the surface. Debris everywhere, men swimming. Some have life jackets, some don't. Behind them, Roberts rolls onto her beam ends. The forward mast touches the water. She hangs there, 11 seconds. Brennan counts them. Then the stern rises, vertical. The screws in the air still, silent. The bow slides under first, fast. No ceremony, just physics. Water filling the spaces where air used to be. 8:51 in the morning, October 25th, 1944, USS Samuel B. Roberts disappears beneath the surface. Brennan treads water. He's already calculating current, speed, wind direction, how long before rescue, whether the Japanese fleet will come back to finish the job. Hayes surfaces next to him, spits seawater. "We did it, Skipper. We held them." Brennan doesn't answer. He's watching the oil slick where his ship used to be, listening to the men calling out to each other in the water, counting voices, subtracting the ones he doesn't hear. 90 voices silent. A piece of decking floats past. Brennan grabs it, holds on. The battle is still going on around them. The escort carriers are running south, making smoke. Aircraft launching with whatever ordnance they have. The other destroyers and destroyer escorts still engaging, but the Japanese fleet is turning away, withdrawing, regrouping. It worked. The math worked. Rewind. 2 hours and 37 minutes. This is a story about the smallest warship in the United States Navy charging the largest battleship fleet ever assembled. This is a story about a reserve officer who thought like an accountant instead of a hero. This is a story about mathematics. Cold, brutal, inescapable. October 25th, 1944. 7:01 in the morning, Philippine Sea off the coast of Samar Island. Commander Everett Brennan stands on the bridge of USS Samuel B. Roberts, destroyer escort. Hull number D, E413. The sun is just clearing the horizon. The sea is flat, calm, the kind of morning that makes you think nothing bad can happen. The radar operator's voice cracks over the intercom. Bridge combat, multiple surface contacts bearing 330, range 32,000 yards, estimate 20 plus major combatants. Brennan reaches for his binoculars, raises them, scans the horizon. He sees them, pagoda masts. The distinctive superstructures of Japanese battleships and heavy cruisers, rising above the curvature of the earth, coming fast. He counts. 4 battleships, 8 cruisers, 11 destroyers, 23 ships. The largest one, dead center of the formation, is Yamato, 72,000 tons displacement, 9 18-inch guns. Each gun fires a shell that weighs more than a Volkswagen Beetle. The armor belt is 16 inches thick. You could park a truck on her deck and the steel wouldn't flex. Roberts displaces 1,350 tons. Yamato is 53 times heavier. Brennan does the math in his head. Effective gun range. The Japanese have big rifles, 26 miles. Roberts has 2 5-inch guns. Effective range 10 miles, maybe 12 if you're lucky and the wind is right. To fight, he has to close 16 miles while under fire from guns that can hit him long before he can hit back. The numbers are clean, simple, absolute. Behind Roberts, 6 escort carriers are launching aircraft, Casablanca class, basically cargo ships with flight decks welded on top. Thin-skinned, unarmored, loaded with aviation fuel and bombs. 1 direct hit and 800 men die in seconds. The carriers make 18 knots, maximum. They're running south now, making smoke. The Japanese fleet makes 30 knots. Brennan calculates. If the carriers run and the Japanese chase, the range closes at 12 knots. 32,000 yards divided by 12 knots, 2,400 yards per hour. Divide by 60, 40 yards per minute. The Japanese will be in gun range in 40 minutes. Then the carriers die, all 6, 5,000 men, the entire air support for the Leyte invasion fleet. The radio crackles. Admiral Clifton Sprague commanding Taffy 3, the call sign for their escort carrier group. Small boys, form up and attack. Repeat, attack. Small boys, that means destroyers and destroyer escorts. 7 ships total against 23. The executive officer looks at Brennan. Skipper. Brennan lowers his binoculars. He's thinking. Not about heroism, not about glory, about time, about math. If they run, the carriers die in 40 minutes. If they attack, if they charge directly into the Japanese fleet, if they make the enemy maneuver fire wildly, waste time targeting destroyers instead of carriers, maybe they buy an hour, maybe more. The math doesn't include his preference. The math doesn't care that destroyer escorts aren't designed for surface combat. The math doesn't care that his crew is 176 men who signed up to hunt submarines, not fight battleships. The math says fight. Brennan turns to the helmsman. All ahead flank, come right to 330. The helmsman hesitates, just for a second. Then he spins the wheel. All ahead flank I, coming right to 330. The exec stares. Skipper, we're not even a real destroyer. Brennan looks at him. His voice is flat, calm. Then today, we become one. He reaches for the general quarters alarm, pulls it. The klaxon screams through the ship. Men run to their stations, gun crews, damage control. Engineers, everyone moving fast, practice trained. Roberts turns, her bow swings north. toward the Japanese fleet. The destroyers USS Johnston, USS Hull, and USS Herman are doing the same, charging 4 small ships against 23. Suicide, that's what the manuals call it. Brennan calls it mathematics. To understand why a man turns a 1,350-ton escort ship toward a 72,000-ton battleship, you need to know where he came from. Everett Brennan, born September 14, 1908, Tacoma, Washington, the son of a foreman at the Todd shipyards. His father, William Brennan, built destroyers during the First World War. Came home with burns on his hands from welding accidents and a belief that if you were going to build something, you built it right, even if no one was watching, especially if no one was watching. Everett learned that early. 1920, he's 12 years old. Summer, he decides he wants a boat. Not a toy boat, a real one, something he can take out on Puget Sound. His father doesn't buy him one, tells him if he wants a boat, he builds it. Everett spends 3 months in the backyard. Scrap lumber from the shipyard, tar paper, nails. He measures everything twice, cuts once, fits the planks tight, seals the seams with pitch his father brings home, launches it on a Saturday morning. His father watching from the dock. The boat leaks immediately. Water coming through the seams faster than Everett expected. He's 100 yards from shore when he realizes the boat is sinking. He has 2 choices, swim back or stay with the boat. He stays, finds a coffee can in the boat, starts bailing 1 can at a time. The water keeps coming. He keeps bailing 4 hours. The sun climbing, his arms burning, the boat settling lower and lower. He makes it back to shore, barely. The boat is half full. Everett is exhausted. His hands are blistered from the can handle. His father meets him at the dock, looks at the boat, looks at his son. "Why didn't you just swim?" Everett, 12 years old, soaked, blistered, looks up at his father. "I built it. I finish with it." His father nods. Once. Doesn't smile, just nods. That's the first time Everett Brennan chooses the hard math over the easy escape. It won't be the last. 1940. Everett Brennan is 32 years old. He works as a draftsman at Boeing in Seattle, drawing blueprints for aircraft components. Good job. Steady pay, safe. Europe is burning. France has fallen. Britain is holding on by her fingernails. The United States isn't in the war yet, but everyone knows it's coming. Brennan enlists in the Naval Reserve, not because he's patriotic, not because he believes in glory, because he can read a calendar and do basic arithmetic. War is coming. When it does, they'll need officers. Better to join. Now get trained than wait for the draft. December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor. Brennan gets his orders 3 weeks later. Report to Naval Reserve, Midshipman's School, Northwestern University, Chicago. 3 months of training. They call them 90-day wonders. Reserve officers, temporary help to fill the gaps while the Navy expands from peacetime to war. The career officers, the Annapolis graduates, look at reservists the way you'd look at day laborers. Warm bodies, temporary, not real Navy. Brennan doesn't care what they think. He learns the curriculum, navigation, gunnery, damage control, engineering, seamanship. He studies the way he built the boat. Measure twice, cut once. The final exam is navigation. Plot a course from San Francisco to Manila, account for currents, wind, fuel consumption. Show your work. Brennan finishes in 40 minutes. The exam is 2 hours. He scores 97%. The instructor, a lieutenant commander with 20 years in the fleet, pulls him aside after class. Most Annapolis graduates don't break 90. Brennan shrugs. The math doesn't change whether you went to college for 4 years or 4 months, sir. The instructor looks at him, hard, trying to decide if Brennan is being arrogant or honest. He writes in Brennan's evaluation, dangerously confident, recommends surface warfare assignment. Brennan graduates in April 1942. 34th in a class of 247, he requests destroyer duty. They give him convoy escort in the Atlantic. Not glamorous, not combat, just shepherding merchant ships through U-boat hunting grounds. He doesn't complain. He learns every system on the ship, every valve, every hatch, every electrical junction, fire control, radar, sonar, damage control. He learns them so well he could operate the systems manually if the power failed, his captain notices. Writes in his fitness report, this officer treats a temporary commission like a permanent obligation. Mid-1942, Brennan gets command of a submarine chaser. SC class, 110 feet. Wooden hull, 65 tons. They hunt submarines with sonar and depth charges and hope. Brennan gets one because he's proven he can navigate, and the Navy needs every officer who can read a compass. 3 weeks into his first patrol, sonar picks up a contact, possible U-boat. Range 800 yards, depth 150 feet. Standard procedure, drop depth charges at the estimated location. Hope you get lucky. Brennan does something different. He tracks the contact for 47 minutes. Plots its course on the chart, calculates its speed based on the Doppler shift in the sonar returns, figures out where it will be in 6 minutes based on depth speed and the known turning radius of German Type 7 U-boats. He positions his ship not where the submarine is but where it's going to be. Then he drops a full spread of depth charges, 8 canisters, set for 150 feet. 30 seconds later, the ocean erupts, oil slick, debris. The U-boat surfaces bow first emergency blow, trying to get the crew out before she sinks. Too late. She slides back under. Gone. 22 German sailors don't come home. Brennan's captain asks him how he knew where to drop. Brennan says, "I didn't guess, sir. I calculated." He gets a letter of commendation, not a medal. Subchaser kills don't rate medals unless there are witnesses from bigger ships. Brennan keeps the letter in his footlocker, never mentions it. 1943. They give Brennan command of USS Samuel B. Roberts, hull number DE413. Brand new, still smells like paint and welding slag. Destroyer escort, a compromise design, bigger than a subchaser, smaller than a destroyer, built to hunt submarines and escort convoys, not designed for surface combat, 306 feet long, 1,350 tons, 2 5-inch guns, 3 torpedoes, depth charge racks, top speed, 24 knots if you're lucky and the engines don't overheat. The ship is named after coxswain Robert Samuel B. Roberts, died September 27, 1942, at Guadalcanal. He was evacuating Marines under fire, could have left when the last boat pulled out, stayed behind to cover the withdrawal. Japanese gunfire cut him down on the beach. Every man aboard Roberts knows that story, knows the ship is named for someone who stayed when he could have run. Brennan's first briefing to his crew, he stands on the fantail, 176 men staring at a reserve officer who looks like an accountant. 5'9", wire rim glasses, thin, no combat decorations. He says, "This ship is 306 feet long and weighs 1,350 tons. That makes her one of the smallest combat vessels in the United States Navy. Some of you are wondering if we'll ever see real action. I'm here to tell you we will. And when we do, I expect this ship to fight like she's 10 times her size, not because we're reckless, because we're prepared." One sailor, Seaman First Class Eddie Kurtz from Milwaukee, writes home that night, "Our captain talks like a school teacher, but there's something in his eyes that makes you believe him." They train for 3 months. Gunnery drills until the gun crews can load and fire in under 6 seconds. Damage control drills in the middle of the night. Man overboard drills. Abandoned ship drills. Brennan walks every inch of the ship, memorizes every valve, every hatch, every electrical junction box. His executive officer, Lieutenant Commander Hayes, asks him why he needs to know where every fire extinguisher is located. Brennan says, "Because when things go wrong, I won't have time to ask." They escort convoys from Boston to Casablanca. Boring work. Zigzag patterns, sonar pings, watching empty ocean for 12 hours at a stretch. Except on June 12th. Radar picks up an aircraft contact. Single plane, closing fast. Could be friendly. Could be a long-range German bomber looking for targets. Standard procedure, wait for identification. Brennan goes to general quarters before the plane is within visual range. His crew thinks he's overreacting. 60 seconds later, the aircraft comes in low. Heinkel HE-177, German bomber, 4 engines, lined up on the convoy's lead freighter. 8,000 tons of aviation fuel and ammunition. Roberts opens fire first. 5-inch guns, 40mm, 20mm, everything. The Heinkel never releases its bombs. It clips the water at 240 miles per hour and disintegrates. Pieces of fuselage, wings, tail section, spreading across a quarter mile of ocean. The after-action report says Commander Brennan's early identification and immediate response likely saved 8,000 tons of cargo and 47 merchant sailors. Brennan's entry in the ship's log: aircraft destroyed, no casualties, resumed station. His crew stops questioning his decisions. September 1944, the Navy sends Roberts to the Pacific. Leyte Gulf, the Philippines. The largest naval battle in history is about to happen. Roberts will be there. Brennan gathers his officers in the wardroom, shows them intelligence reports, Japanese fleet movements, the strategic situation. He tells them, "We're not in the Atlantic anymore. Out here we might face surface ships. If that happens, remember we're not designed to fight battleships, but if we have to, we will, and we'll make them think they're fighting something much bigger." His gunnery officer, Lieutenant Hugh Gallagher, asks, "How do we do that, sir?" Brennan smiles, thin, doesn't reach his eyes. "We don't miss, and we don't stop." By October 24, 1944, Everett Brennan has trained his crew to operate like a ship twice their size, commanded with the precision of an Annapolis graduate, earned a reputation for being mathematically fearless. But nothing compares to what happens next. October 25, 1944, 7:01 in the morning, Philippine Sea. This is how they do it. The Japanese fleet shouldn't be here. American intelligence said they were retreating, said the carrier airstrikes had crippled them, said Taffy 3 was safe. Intelligence was wrong. Admiral Takeo Kurita's center force, 4 battleships, 8 cruisers, 11 destroyers came through San Bernardino Strait at midnight undetected. Now they're 17 miles away and closing at 30 knots. They've already opened fire. Shells the size of refrigerators landing near the escort carriers. Geysers of water 200 feet high. The carriers are turning south, running, making smoke. Their aircraft are launching with whatever bombs they have. Most are carrying depth charges, useless against armored ships. Brennan stands on the bridge, binoculars up, watching the Japanese formation, counting ships, calculating ranges, running the numbers. His radar operator's voice is steady now, training kicking in. "Skipper, I'm counting 23 major contacts bearing 330, range 32,000 yards and closing. The escort carriers make 18 knots maximum. The Japanese make 30. The range closes at 12 knots. The math ends with everyone dead in 40 minutes. Admiral Sprague transmits, small boys form up and attack, repeat attack. 7 ships against 23. Brennan looks at Hayes. "You heard him." Hayes says, "Skipper, we're not even a real destroyer." Brennan says, "Then today we become one." He turns to the helmsman. "All ahead flank, come right to 330. Sound general quarters." The Samuel B. Roberts turns toward the Japanese fleet. The Japanese can hit them from 26 miles. Roberts's guns are effective at 10. To fight, they have to close 16 miles while under fire from the most powerful naval guns ever put on a ship. Roberts makes smoke, the destroyers Johnston, Howell, and Heermann doing the same. Thick chemical fog, the smoke hides the carriers, also hides Roberts, also hides the Japanese. Brennan can't see what he's shooting at. Radar gives ranges but not target identification. He doesn't know which ship is which. He uses the radar returns to identify ship sizes. Biggest, slowest contacts, battleships. Medium, fast contacts, cruisers. He targets the cruisers. They're the most dangerous to the carriers. Faster, more accurate at medium range. Roberts's fire control computer is designed for anti-submarine work and aircraft, not surface targets moving at 30 knots. The computer keeps giving bad solutions. Lieutenant Gallagher, the gunnery officer, switches to manual control, uses a stopwatch and trigonometry, plots the target's course, calculates lead time, calls firing solutions by hand. The first salvo falls short. The second brackets the target. The third hits. A Japanese heavy cruiser Chokai takes a 5-inch shell in her engineering spaces. It's a mosquito bite to a ship that size, but it forces her to maneuver, disrupts her firing solution. The cruiser turns toward them. Now 3 cruisers are targeting Roberts specifically. Shells start landing close. Geysers of water 60 feet high. The ship shakes like someone's kicking her keel. Brennan orders evasive maneuvers. The helmsman starts zigzagging, not random, patterned, changes course every 20 seconds, makes them harder to hit. A shell passes through the mast, doesn't explode, just punches a hole and keeps going. Another lands 30 feet off the port bow. The explosion lifts the bow out of the water, spray across the deck. Men hold on to anything bolted down. Brennan keeps closing range. By 7:28 in the morning, they've fired 120 rounds. They have 100 left. At their current rate, they'll be Winchester out of ammunition in 12 minutes. Gallagher switches to check fire mode, only shoot when the solution is perfect. Firing slower means the Japanese have more time to target them. Chokai lands a hit. 8-inch shell punches through the starboard side, exits through the port side, doesn't explode. Armor-piercing round designed for battleships. Roberts's hull is so thin the fuse doesn't trigger, but it severs a steam line. Scalding steam fills the aft engine room. 3 men die instantly. Skin boiling, lungs scorched. The ship slows to 17 knots. Chief Warrant Officer Warren Keller, the chief engineer, is in the forward engine room when it happens. He hears the screaming over the sound-powered phone. Then silence. He isolates the damaged line, reroutes steam through auxiliary systems, gets the ship back to 22 knots in 4 minutes. He does this while standing in 140-degree heat, wearing a sound-powered phone headset, calling updates to the bridge between second-degree burns on his hands. At 7:35 in the morning, range is down to 10,000 yards. Brennan reaches torpedo range. Roberts carries 3 Mark 15 torpedoes. That's it. Most destroyers carry 10. Brennan waits, lets the range drop to 4,200 yards, less than 2.5 miles, point-blank range for torpedoes. He picks his target, heavy cruiser closing on the carriers, big, slow, predictable course. Fire torpedoes, full spread. All 3 go. They run straight. Hot, true. The cruiser spots the torpedo wakes, starts turning. She's going to dodge. She can't. The cruiser's maneuvering to avoid torpedoes puts her directly in the path of the 3rd one. It hits amidships. The explosion breaks her keel. The cruiser Chikuma begins listing immediately. Secondary explosions, ammunition, fuel, black smoke pouring from her midships section. Brennan's crew cheers. He doesn't. He's counting shells. They're down to 47 rounds. They've shot their torpedoes. They're running out of 5-inch ammunition. The Japanese are still coming. 8 ships are now firing at Roberts and the other small boys. Brennan orders, keep shooting. Use everything. Gallagher orders the gun crews to load star shells, illumination rounds meant for night fighting. They're not designed to damage ships, but they're projectiles. They'll force the Japanese to keep maneuvering. At 7:51 in the morning, a 14-inch shell from the battleship Congo hits Roberts. Forward engine room. The explosion is catastrophic. Kills 11 men, destroys the forward boiler. The ship drops to 12 knots, then 8, then 5. Steam pressure drops, electrical power fails. Backup generators kick in, but they only power essential systems. The 5-inch guns switch to manual operation. The crews have to hand crank the guns to aim. They keep firing. Slower now, but they don't stop. Manual loading, manual aiming, manual firing. 6 seconds per shot becomes 12, but they don't stop. Gun 51, forward 5-inch mount, fires 32 rounds on manual. The crew can see the Japanese ships now. No fire control computer, no radar, just eyes and math. They're hitting a moving target from a ship that's barely moving with guns they're operating by hand. Leading the gun crew is gunner's mate 2nd Class Danny Mercer. 19 years old, farm boy from Iowa. Joined the Navy 3 days after Pearl Harbor because his father died there. Aboard USS Arizona. Gun turret 2, never found the body. Danny Mercer loads shells that weigh 54 pounds. By hand, over and over. His loader gets killed by a shell fragment at 8:05. Mercer keeps loading, alone now, lifting 54-pound shells, ramming them home, closing the breach, stepping clear. The gun fires. He does it again and again. 32 times. At 8:11 in the morning, Roberts loses all propulsion. She's drifting. Speed 0. The Japanese cruiser Tone closes to 7,000 yards. Starts hitting her systematically. There's no evasive maneuver. You can't maneuver without engines. You can't run without propulsion. All Brennan can do is keep shooting and prepare for the worst. He orders, abandon ship procedures, stand by. But he doesn't give the order yet. The Japanese are hitting them every 30 seconds now. Shells punching through the hull. Roberts is flooding. The aft magazine is taking water. If water reaches the ammunition, it'll explode. Damage control teams flood the magazine intentionally, ruins the ammunition, but prevents an explosion. Brennan orders the 40mm and 20mm gun crews to keep firing. They're shooting at cruisers with guns designed for aircraft. It's useless. But it keeps the Japanese targeting them instead of the carriers. 8:35 in the morning, Roberts has taken dozens of hits. She's listing 20 degrees to port. The bow is underwater. The stern is rising. Men are being killed by shell fragments, by steam, by fire. Brennan gives the order. Abandon ship. The crew moves in order, wounded first, then gun crews, then damage control. Brennan stands on the bridge, counts heads. His executive officer grabs his arm. Skipper, we have to go, now. Brennan takes one last look at the pilot house, the radar repeater sparking, the helm unmanned, the deck tilted 35 degrees. He hears the groan of metal tearing. He and Hayes jump from the bridge wing, 20 feet into the water. Roberts rolls onto her beam ends. Her forward mast touches the water. Men are swimming away. Some have life jackets, some don't. Roberts' stern rises, vertical, screws in the air. She hangs there, 11 seconds. Then she slides under. Bow first, quiet, fast. 8:51 in the morning. USS Samuel B. Roberts disappears beneath the Philippine Sea. Everett Brennan treads water, counts heads. He sees clusters of men holding onto flotsam, debris, life rafts. Splashes where shells are still landing nearby. The Japanese fleet is moving past them now, chasing the carriers, but the carriers are escaping. The smoke, the aircraft, the suicidal charge of the small boys. It worked. Admiral Kurita thinks he's facing fleet carriers and heavy cruisers. He orders his ships to regroup. The battle off Samar is ending. Brennan and his crew and survivors from other ships float in the water. They'll be there for 50 hours before rescue arrives. 89 men from Roberts will survive. 90 will not. Brennan, floating on a piece of decking, tells his men, "We did our job. We held them. The carriers are safe." One sailor, Danny Mercer, isn't there. He died in the wreckage of Gun 51. He was found with a 54-pound shell in his arms, trying to load it manually after everyone else in his crew was dead. 19 years old. Brennan will remember that for the rest of his life. October 27, 1944. The survivors are pulled from the water by USS DeFilio, another destroyer escort. DE-423, sister ship to Roberts. Brennan is delirious. Sun exposure, dehydration, swallowing seawater for 50 hours. His lips are cracked, bleeding, skin blistered from the sun. He keeps asking the same question. Are the carriers safe? The corpsman tells him yes. All 6 carriers survived. Brennan nods, closes his eyes, doesn't speak for 12 hours. When he wakes, he's in the sick bay of a hospital ship, USS Bountiful. White sheets, clean, quiet. The opposite of everything he's experienced for the last 2 days. A nurse tells him he needs to rest. He asks for paper and a pen. She brings them. Brennan sits up, ignores the pain in his ribs where he cracked them jumping from the bridge, ignores the burns on his hands from grabbing hot metal during the battle. He starts writing. The first letter is to the mother of Danny Mercer. Farm outside Des Moines, Iowa. He writes, "Dear Mrs. Mercer, it is my duty to inform you that your son, gunner's mate, 2nd Class Daniel Joseph Mercer, was killed in action on October 25, 1944 during the Battle off Samar. Danny was the gun captain of Mount 51, our forward 5-inch gun. When our ship came under fire from Japanese cruisers and battleships, Danny and his crew continued firing even after we lost all power. They operated the gun manually, by hand. Danny's loader was killed at 08:05. Danny continued alone. He loaded and fired 32 rounds by himself. Each shell weighed 54 pounds. He was found in the wreckage of his gun mount. He was still trying to load when he died. He was 19 years old. He was the bravest man I have ever seen. I am sorry I could not bring him home." Commander Everett Brennan, USN. He writes 89 more letters, one for each man who didn't come back. It takes him 3 days. Admiral Clifton Sprague visits the survivors on October 29th. He finds Brennan sitting in a chair on the deck of the hospital ship, staring at the horizon. Not moving. Sprague sits down next to him, doesn't speak for a minute, just sits. Finally, he asks, "What happened out there, Commander?" Brennan doesn't look at him, keeps staring at the water. "We fought, sir." The ship fought like she was 10 times her size. Sprague says, "I know, we all saw." He hands Brennan a folder. "This is the preliminary action report. I need you to review it. Make sure the facts are accurate." Brennan opens the folder, reads. The report uses the word unprecedented 4 times. USS Samuel B. Roberts fired 608 rounds of 5-inch ammunition in 2 hours and 37 minutes. She scored direct hits on at least 2 heavy cruisers. Her torpedo spread helped sink the Chikuma. Her actions combined with the other small boys convinced Admiral Kurita he was facing a much larger force. The report concludes, the conduct of Commander Brennan and the crew of USS Samuel B. Roberts represents the highest traditions of naval service. Their sacrifice saved 6 escort carriers and prevented the destruction of the Leyte invasion force. Brennan closes the folder, hands it back. "It's accurate, sir." Sprague stands, looks down at him. "The Navy is recommending you for the Navy Cross." Brennan doesn't respond. Sprague waits, then says, "You did the right thing, Brennan. The math was right." Brennan finally looks up. His eyes are hollow, tired. 90 men are dead, sir. The math doesn't feel right." "Ye?" Sprague doesn't have an answer for that. The story spreads through the fleet within days. The destroyer escort that fought like a battleship. The reserve officer who charged a battleship fleet and survived long enough to change the outcome of the largest naval battle ever fought. Sailors start calling Roberts the tin can that wouldn't die. Newspapers pick it up. Small ship, big fight. David and Goliath at sea. The headlines write themselves. Brennan doesn't read them. He's transferred to Pearl Harbor for debriefing. Spends 2 weeks answering questions from intelligence officers who want to know everything about the Japanese fleet. Ship types, gun calibers, formation tactics, rate of fire. Brennan answers, precise, detailed, clinical. They ask him how he felt when he gave the order to attack. He says, "I didn't feel anything, sir. I calculated." They don't understand. They think he's being modest, playing down his heroism. He's not. He genuinely doesn't understand what they want him to say. He saw a problem. He did the math. He made a decision. The decision worked. 90 men died. That's the equation. Feeling doesn't enter into it. December 1944, the Navy gives Brennan a new command, USS Aaron Ward, destroyer escort DE-575, nearly identical to Roberts. He requests it specifically, says he knows the class, knows what it can do. The crew of Aaron Ward hears the stories. They're nervous, excited. They want to know if Commander Brennan is crazy or brilliant or both. Brennan's first briefing is short. This ship is 306 feet long, 1,350 tons. We're not the biggest, we're not the fastest, but we will be the best trained, and if we have to fight, we will fight smart. He doesn't mention Samar, doesn't mention Roberts, doesn't need to. They train for 4 months. Gunnery, damage control, engineering, over and over until the crew can operate every system with their eyes closed. In April 1945, Aaron Ward is assigned to radar picket duty off Okinawa. Radar picket. You sit 40 miles offshore, act as an early warning station for incoming Japanese aircraft. You're the first target for kamikazes. It's a death sentence assignment. Brennan doesn't complain. April 6, 1945. The Japanese launch Operation Tengo, massive kamikaze attack. 355 aircraft. Aaron Ward is on station. Radar picks up contacts at 3:17 in the afternoon. 47 inbound aircraft. Friendly combat air patrol intercepts most of them. 38 shot down, 5 turn back, 4 break through, heading directly for Aaron Ward. Standard doctrine evasive maneuvers, call for support, hope they miss. Brennan orders Aaron Ward to reverse course directly toward the incoming kamikazes. His reasoning is simple. If he closes the distance, their approach angle gets steeper. Steeper angles mean less reaction time for the pilots, harder to adjust, easier to overshoot. The gun crews engage. 40mm, 20mm, 5-inch proximity fuses. One kamikaze disintegrates at 800 yards. The shell hits the engine. The plane comes apart in mid-air. Pieces rain into the ocean. Second at 600 yards. Direct hit, fireball. The wreckage skips across the water like a stone. Misses the ship by 50 feet. Third at 400 yards. Wing clips off. The plane cartwheels. Hits the water 200 yards out. The fourth gets through. Mitsubishi A6M0. Diving at 300 miles per hour. The pilot is aiming for the bridge. Every gun on the ship is firing. Tracers, shells, everything. The Zero takes hits. Engine smoking, but it keeps coming. At the last second, it clips the main mast. Takes off the radar antenna. The plane spins. Crashes into the ocean 50 feet off the port side. The explosion throws water across the deck. The ship rocks, holds together. 0 casualties, 0 damage to the hull. The after-action report says, Aaron Ward's aggressive defensive tactics resulted in successful defense of station and ship. Brennan's log entry, 4 aircraft engaged, 4 aircraft destroyed, damage 1 radar antenna, replaceable. Same pattern, same logic, same man. The war ends in August 1945. Brennan stays in the Navy, makes it a career. Not because of fame, not because of medals, because it's the job. He commands 3 more ships, trains hundreds of officers, serves in Korea, destroyer command, combat operations off Incheon and Wonsan. He never fires another shot in anger after Okinawa. The Korean deployment is shore bombardment, covering marine landings, destroying supply depots. He's good at it, precise, efficient, but it's not the same. After Korea, he's assigned to the Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island, teaching surface tactics to junior officers. 1954, he's teaching a class on engagement doctrine. One of the students, a young lieutenant junior grade fresh from the fleet, raises his hand. "Commander, what were you thinking when you turned toward the Japanese fleet at Samar?" Brennan pauses, adjusts his wire-rimmed glasses. The classroom is silent. 30 officers waiting for the answer. "I was thinking about the math. If we ran, they'd catch the carriers in 40 minutes. If we fought, maybe we'd buy an hour. The math said fight." The student says, "But you could have been killed, sir." Brennan looks at him, doesn't blink. "So could the 5,000 men on those carriers. The math didn't include my preference." The room stays silent. Brennan continues, "Courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about calculating the cost of action versus the cost of inaction, and then doing what the numbers tell you, even when the numbers are ugly." One of the students writes that down, underlines it twice. 1958. Brennan is promoted to captain. 30 years of service, he's 50 years old. His hair is grey, the wire-rimmed glasses are thicker now. He has a slight limp from an old injury during damage control training. He's offered a desk job at the Bureau of Naval Personnel in Washington, administrative work, no more sea duty. He takes it. Not because he wants to, because his wife Margaret asks him to. They've been married since 1947, met at a USO dance in San Diego. She's a nurse, understands the military, but she's tired of moving every 2 years, tired of wondering if he's going to come home. Brennan retires in 1969. Captain. 30 years of service. The ceremony is small. A few fellow officers, Margaret, their daughter Helen. The admiral, pinning on his retirement medal, asks if he wants to say a few words. Brennan says, "I did my job, that's all." He returns to Tacoma, buys a small house near the water, not on the water, near it. Close enough to see Puget Sound from the porch, he volunteers at the Foss Waterway Seaport Museum, gives tours to school groups, tells them about destroyers and destroyer escorts, shows them models, explains how radar works, how sonar works. The kids ask questions, he answers, patient, precise. One kid, maybe 10 years old, asks if he was ever scared when the shells were hitting his ship. Brennan looks at the kid, thinks for a moment. Every second, fear doesn't mean you stop. It means you keep calculating. The kid doesn't understand, but he remembers it. Years later, when he's older, it'll make sense. Brennan spends his retirement building models, ships, destroyers, destroyer escorts, carriers. He works in a small workshop in the garage, precise tools. Magnifying glass, tiny paintbrushes. He's building a model of USS Samuel B. Roberts. 1/72nd scale, every detail accurate. The gun mounts, the torpedo tubes, the smoke generators. He works on it for 6 years. September 25th, 1975. Margaret finds him in the workshop, slumped over the workbench. The model is almost finished. Just the final details left. Paint touch-ups, rigging, heart failure, age 67. The paramedics say it was quick. Probably didn't feel anything. Next to the model is a blueprint, hand-drawn, labeled Gun Mount 51. At the bottom, in Brennan's handwriting, Danny Mercer, 19 years old, never forget. Everett Brennan is buried at Mountain View Cemetery in Tacoma, Section 4, Row 12, Grave 7. The headstone is simple. Captain Everett Brennan, USN, Navy Cross, 1908 to 1975. Beneath that, Commanding Officer USS Samuel B. Roberts, DE 413. No mention of Samar, no mention of the impossible charge. Just his name and his ship. The funeral is small, fellow officers, a Navy honor guard, Margaret, Helen. Admiral William Thompson, retired, gives the eulogy. Everett Brennan was not a man who sought glory. He was a man who calculated the right thing to do and then did it, regardless of the cost. He saved 5,000 lives at Samar. He never talked about it. He just did his job. Thompson pauses, looks at the coffin. The Navy has lost a great officer. The nation has lost a hero. But Everett wouldn't want to be called a hero. He'd want to be called what he was, a calculator, a thinker, a man who turned toward the threat because someone had to. The honor guard fires 3 volleys. A bugler plays taps. Margaret accepts the folded flag. Helen stands next to her, silent. She's 30 years old, married, 2 kids. She grew up knowing her father was famous for something, but he never talked about it. After the funeral, she asks Thompson what her father was really like in the war. Thompson says, "He was the calmest man under fire I ever met. He treated combat like a math problem, and he always showed his work." 1986, the Navy commissions a new guided missile frigate, FFG-58, named USS Samuel B. Roberts. Helen Brennan attends the ceremony. She's 41 now, brings the unfinished model her father was working on when he died. The new commanding officer, Commander Paul Rinn, meets her on the dock before the ceremony. She hands him the model. "My father was building this when he died. I thought it should go with the ship." Rinn takes it, looks at the detail, the tiny gun mounts, the torpedo tubes. "This is beautiful, though." Helen says, "He never finished it. He ran out of time." Rinn nods. "We'll finish it for him. And we'll put it in the wardroom, so everyone who serves on this ship knows what the name means." He keeps his word. The model is mounted in a glass case in the wardroom of FFG-58. Next to it, a plaque. "In memory of the 90 men of USS Samuel B. Roberts, DE 413, who gave their lives at the Battle of Samar, October 25th, 1944. They stayed when they could have run." Beneath that, a smaller inscription. "Commander Everett Brennan, USN. He calculated the right thing. Then he did it." FFG-58 serves until 2015, 30 years, Persian Gulf, Mediterranean, Atlantic. She never fires a shot in combat. When she's decommissioned, the model is transferred to the Naval History and Heritage Command in Washington, D.C. It sits in a climate-controlled archive, catalogued, preserved. Most people don't know it exists, but the few who do, the historians and researchers who study the Battle of Samar, they know what it represents. It represents a man who built something and stayed with it until the end, even when the end was impossible. October 25th, 2024. 80 years after the battle, the wreck of USS Samuel B. Roberts is discovered by deep-sea explorers, 22,000 feet below the surface, the deepest shipwreck ever found. The hull is intact, resting on the bottom, covered in sediment and marine growth. The forward 5-inch gun mount, Gun 51, is still there, trained out to starboard, the position it was in when the ship sank. The explorers send down a remotely operated vehicle, cameras, lights, They document everything. In the wreckage of Gun 51, they find something, a shell, 54 pounds, still in the loading tray. The last round Danny Mercer was trying to load when he died. The discovery makes international news. Deepest shipwreck found. Hero ship discovered. The Navy releases a statement. USS Samuel B. Roberts and her crew represent the finest traditions of naval service. Their actions at Samar saved countless lives and changed the course of the battle. We will never forget their sacrifice. In Tacoma, at Mountain View Cemetery, someone places a small American flag on Everett Brennan's grave. No one knows who, but every year, on October 25th, a new flag appears. Most people don't know the name Everett Brennan. They know Roberts. They know Taffy 3. They know the battle, but they don't always know the man who turned a submarine hunter into a surface combatant because the math required it. Some stories don't fit on headstones. Some stories require context, numbers, details. The documented record says a destroyer escort engaged superior forces, inflicted damage disproportionate to her size, absorbed enemy fire intended for higher value targets, sank after 2 hours and 37 minutes of sustained combat. Commander Brennan made tactical decisions based on mathematical probability, not heroism, calculation. Both versions are true, both are remarkable. But here's what matters. Everett Brennan looked at a situation where every tactical manual, every training scenario, every rational calculation said run, and he asked a different question. Not, can we win, but what happens if we don't fight? The carriers die. 5,000 men die. The invasion fleet at Leyte loses air cover. The math changes for everyone. So he turned toward the enemy, not because he was fearless, because the cost of not fighting was higher than the cost of fighting. That's not courage. That's accounting, moral accounting. You see the same pattern twice. At Samar in 1944, facing battleships. At Okinawa in 1945, facing kamikazes. Turn toward the threat, close the distance, make them react to you instead of you reacting to them. Most of us spend our lives running from things that scare us. Everett Brennan spent his life turning toward them, not because he wanted to, because someone had to, and the math said it should be him. The question isn't whether you're brave enough to charge a battleship. The question is, when the math says someone has to and you're the one standing there, what do you do? Brennan looked at his helmsman and said, come right to 330. 90 men died, 5,000 lived. The math was right. There are two kinds of men in war. The first kind runs the numbers and stops, sees the odds, sees the impossibility, makes the rational choice. Or the second kind runs the numbers and keeps going, sees the same odds, sees the same impossibility, makes a different choice. Everett Brennan was the second kind. But to understand why requires going back, before the Navy, before the war, before the moment he turned a destroyer escort toward a battleship fleet. You need to understand what his father taught him about cracks in steel. 1917, Tacoma, Washington. Everett Brennan is 9 years old. His father, William Brennan, is a foreman at Todd shipyards, building destroyers for the war in Europe. Every night, William comes home with burns on his hands, welding accidents, hot metal, sparks catching cloth. The skin heals rough, scarred. The scars have scars. Everett asks him once, "Dad, why don't you wear thicker gloves?" His father flexes his fingers. The scar tissue pulls tight. Thick gloves, you can't feel the weld, can't tell if it's holding right, you need to feel it, even if it burns. Everett doesn't understand, not yet. William teaches him to read blueprints, how to measure twice, cut once, how to check your work even when supervisors aren't watching, especially when they're not watching. One evening in November, William brings home a piece of hull plating, 18 inches square, half-inch steel, stamped in red paint, reject. He sets it on the kitchen table. "What's wrong with it?" Everett asks. His father doesn't answer immediately. He runs his scarred fingers across the surface. Then he points, a hairline crack. Barely visible. You'd miss it if you weren't looking. "See that?" Everett leans close. Barely. That crack propagates under stress, gets bigger, spreads. Eventually the whole plate fails. In calm seas it's fine. Ship sits in harbour, no problem, but in a storm, when the hull is flexing, when the waves are hitting, when men are depending on that steel to hold, he pauses. Men die. He tosses the plate into the scrap bin behind the house. Quality isn't about making it look good, Everett. It's about making it hold when everything's trying to tear it apart. 27 years later, standing on the bridge of USS Samuel B. Roberts, while 14-inch shells are landing close enough to lift the bow out of the water, Everett Brennan will remember that lesson. When everything is trying to tear you apart, you hold, or you break. 1932, the Depression. Everett Brennan is 24 years old. Boeing is laying off workers, the shipyard is running skeleton crews. Men line up for day work that doesn't come. Brennan works as a draftsman. Technical diagrams, aircraft components, wings, fuselages, landing gear. The pay is barely enough. He lives in a boarding house on Pacific Avenue, shares a bathroom with 5 other men, eats 1 meal a day, oatmeal usually, saves everything else. His mother died 2 years ago, influenza, she was 48. His father is 62, still working at the shipyard, still coming home with burns, hands so scarred now he can barely hold a pencil. But he works, because that's what men do. Every Sunday, Everett takes the streetcar to his father's house, brings groceries, bread, eggs, coffee. They sit on the porch, watch Puget Sound, don't talk much. One Sunday, in March, grey sky, rain, threatening his father, breaks the silence. And you ever think about joining up? Joining what? Navy. They're always looking for technical men, engineers, navigators. You're good with numbers. Everett hasn't thought about it. The Navy is for adventurers, men who want to see the world, fight wars. He just wants to survive, keep his head down, do his work. I don't think I'm Navy material, Dad. His father nods, doesn't push, lights his pipe. The tobacco smoke drifts across the porch. Then he says, war's coming, whether we want it or not. Europe's a powder keg. Japan's expanding. We'll get pulled in, and when we do, they'll need men who can think. Not just follow orders, men who can calculate, who can see the cracks before the plate fails. Everett looks at his father. You think there'll be another war? I know there will. How do you know? William Brennan tamps his pipe. Because men don't learn. We fought the last one, called it the war to end all wars, buried millions. And here we are 20 years later doing it again. He pauses. But the men who can calculate, who can think, who can see the cracks, those men save lives, even when they can't save everyone. 8 years later, Everett will remember that conversation, when he's standing on a bridge calculating whether 90 men are worth 5,000. October 27th, 1944. Hospital ship USS Bountiful. Everett Brennan sits in a metal chair on the deck, staring at the horizon. He's been sitting here for 3 hours, hasn't moved. The nurse tried to get him to go back to the ward. He refused, politely, quietly, but refused. She left him alone. He's not staring at anything specific, just the line where the ocean meets the sky. The place where USS Samuel B. Roberts went under 3 days ago. Admiral Sprague found him here yesterday, asked him what happened. Brennan told him. Precise, clinical, like he was reading an engineering report. The Admiral left the action report for review. Brennan read it, confirmed the facts, handed it back. But now sitting alone, the facts are different. 608 rounds fired, 90 men dead. The math was right. The carriers lived. 5,000 men went home. But Brennan can name every one of the 90 who didn't. He's been naming them over and over in his head, making sure he doesn't forget. Danny Mercer, 19, Iowa, Gun 51, Warren Keller, 28, Pennsylvania, Chief Engineer, Robert Hayes, 31, Executive Officer, Boston, Thomas Mitchell, 22, Fireman, Alabama, James O'Brien, 25, Gunner's Mate, New York, on and on, 90 names, 90 faces, 90 men who followed his orders and died because the math said someone had to. A corpsman approaches. Commander, you need to eat something. Brennan doesn't look at him. I'm fine. Sir, you haven't eaten in 2 days. I said I'm fine. The corpsman hesitates, then leaves. Brennan goes back to the names. William Peterson, 20. Loader, Oregon. Charles Anderson, 26. Electrician, Michigan. He has 90 letters to write. 90 mothers, 90 fathers, 90 families who need to know their son, their husband, their father died doing his job. He starts writing that afternoon. It takes him 4 days. Every letter is different, personal, specific. What the man did, how he died, what Brennan saw. To Mrs. Mercer in Iowa, he writes about Gun 51, about 32 rounds fired manually, about a 19-year-old boy who kept loading until there was no one left to fire. To Mr. Keller in Pennsylvania, he writes about 140 degrees, about rerouting steam with burned hands, about getting the ship back to 22 knots when everyone thought they were done. To Mrs. Hayes in Boston, he writes about a man who grabbed his arm and said, "Skipper, we have to go now." About jumping together, about surfacing and not seeing him again. 90 letters. 90 different ways to say, "I'm sorry, I couldn't bring your son home." When he finishes the last one, he sits at the small desk in the wardroom, stares at the stack of envelopes. 90. The math was right, but it doesn't feel right. It never will. December 1944, Pearl Harbor. The Navy gives Brennan 2 weeks' leave, tells him to go home, rest, recover. He doesn't go home. He requests a new command instead. The personnel officer looks at his file, looks at him. "Commander, you just lost your ship, lost 90 men. You're entitled to shore duty, training command, something stateside." Brennan says, "I'd like another DE, sir. Same class as Roberts, if possible." "Why?" "Because I know the class, I know what it can do." The personnel officer studies him. "You sure about this?" "Yes, sir." They give him USS Aaron Ward. DE 575, identical to Roberts. Same guns, same engines, same limitations, same mathematics. April 6, 1945. Off Okinawa, Aaron Ward is on radar picket station 40 miles offshore. Early warning for kamikazes. It's a death sentence assignment. Everyone knows it. The Japanese are throwing everything they have at Okinawa. Hundreds of aircraft. Suicide attacks. The picket ships are the first targets. Destroyers and destroyer escorts sitting alone, waiting to be hit. Brennan doesn't complain. At 3:17 in the afternoon, radar picks up contacts. 47 aircraft inbound. The Combat Air Patrol intercepts most of them. 38 shot down. 5 turn back. 4 break through, heading directly for Aaron Ward. Brennan watches them come. Mitsubishi Zeros. Stripped down, extra fuel, no bombs. The planes themselves are the weapons. Standard doctrine says evade. Turn, maneuver, make them chase you. Hope they miss. Brennan orders the helmsman to reverse course, directly toward the incoming aircraft. His exec, a lieutenant named Morrison, stares at him. "Skipper, we're supposed to evade." Brennan doesn't take his eyes off the incoming planes. "If we turn away, they have all the time in the world to line up. They'll adjust, follow, hit us eventually. And if we go toward them, their approach angle gets steeper. They have less time to adjust. They overshoot or they crash trying to pull out." Morrison hesitates. "That's not in the manual, sir." Brennan's voice is flat, calm. "The manual doesn't account for pilots who want to die." Aaron Ward turns toward the kamikazes. The gun crews open fire. 40mm, 20mm, 5-inch proximity fuses, everything. 1-0 disintegrates at 800 yards. Direct hit on the engine. The plane comes apart mid-air. Second at 600 yards. Wing clips off. The plane tumbles, hits the water. Third at 400 yards. Fireball, wreckage skipping across the ocean like stones. The fourth keeps coming. Every gun on the ship is firing. The sky is full of tracers, shells, smoke. The Zero takes hits, engines smoking, pieces flying off, but it keeps coming. The pilot is aiming for the bridge, for Brennan. At the last second, the plane clips the main mast, takes off the radar antenna, spins, crashes 50 feet off the port side. The explosion throws water across the deck. The ship rocks, holds, 0 casualties. Morrison is breathing hard. Jesus Christ, Skipper. Brennan's voice hasn't changed. Damage report. 1 radar antenna, that's it. Replaceable. Brennan writes in the log, 4 aircraft engaged, 4 aircraft destroyed. Damage 1 radar antenna. Morrison watches him write. Skipper. That was insane. Brennan looks up. His eyes are tired, hollow. No, that was math. If we turned away, at least 1 gets through, probably 2. If we close the distance, their geometry fails. The math said close. But what if you were wrong? Brennan closes the logbook. Then we'd all be dead. But we're not, so the math was right. Morrison doesn't know what to say to that. Later, after the battle, after the adrenaline fades, Morrison will realize something about Commander Brennan. He doesn't calculate because he's fearless. He calculates because he's terrified. And calculating is the only way he knows how to function when he's terrified. 1954. Naval War College, Newport, Rhode Island. Captain Everett Brennan stands at the front of a classroom. 46 years old, wire-rim glasses thicker now, hair grey at the temples. He's teaching surface tactics to junior officers. Most of them are lieutenants, fresh from sea duty, eager, confident. Today's topic, engagement doctrine against superior forces. One of the students, a Lieutenant J.G. named Patterson, raises his hand. Captain, I've read the Samar action reports. What were you thinking when you turned toward the Japanese fleet? The room goes silent. Everyone knows who Brennan is. Everyone's read the reports. The destroyer escort that fought like a battleship, the Navy Cross, the legend. But no one's asked him directly. Brennan adjusts his glasses. I was thinking about time, Lieutenant, and mathematics. Can you explain, sir? Brennan walks to the chalkboard, picks up chalk, writes, carrier speed 18 knots, enemy speed 30 knots, closing speed 12 knots, range 32,000 yards. He underlines the numbers. If the carriers ran and we didn't engage, how long until the Japanese were in gun range? Patterson does the math. 40 minutes, sir. Correct. And if the Japanese are in gun range of unarmored escort carriers, what happens? The carriers are destroyed, sir. How many carriers? 6, sir. How many men aboard those 6 carriers? Patterson hesitates. Approximately 5,000, sir. Brennan nods, writes 5,000 men dead in 40 minutes. He turns back to the class. Now, if we engaged, if we charged directly at them, forced them to maneuver, forced them to target us instead of the carriers, how much time do we buy? Patterson says, the reports say you fought for 2 hours and 37 minutes, sir. Brennan writes, 2 hours, 37 minutes. That's an extra hour and 57 minutes. In naval combat, that's a lifetime. That's enough time for the carriers to escape, for air support to arrive, for the Japanese admiral to make mistakes. He sets down the chalk. The math was simple, Lieutenant. Fight and maybe buy time. Run and definitely die. The math said fight. Another student, Lieutenant Chen, raises his hand. But sir, you could have been killed. Brennan looks at him, doesn't blink. So could the 5,000 men on those carriers. The math didn't include my preference, Lieutenant. The room is silent. Chen pushes. But didn't you feel... Brennan cuts him off. What I felt is irrelevant. Feelings don't change mathematics. The carriers made 18 knots. The Japanese made 30. That's not an opinion. That's physics. He pauses, looks at each student. Courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about calculating the cost of action versus the cost of inaction, and then doing what the numbers tell you to do, even when the numbers are ugly. One student writes that down, underlines it. Brennan continues, in war you will face situations where all your options are bad, where men will die no matter what you choose. Your job isn't to find the option where nobody dies. That option doesn't exist. Your job is to calculate which option saves the most lives, and then execute that option, even if it costs you everything. He picks up the chalk again, writes 90 men died, 5,000 men lived. That's the equation, gentlemen. That's command. The class is silent for a long moment. Finally, Patterson asks, "Sir, do you ever regret the decision?" Brennan looks at the numbers on the board. 90, 5,000. Every single day, Lieutenant. But regret doesn't change the math. The decision was correct. The cost was high. Both things are true. After class, Patterson approaches Brennan's desk. "Sir, can I ask you something off the record?" Brennan looks up. "Go ahead." "Do you remember their names?" "The 90 men." Brennan doesn't hesitate. "Everyone." All 90. Everyone. Their names, their ages, where they were from, how they died. Patterson is quiet for a moment. "That must be hard, sir." Brennan closes his briefcase. "It's not about hard or easy, Lieutenant. It's about responsibility. I gave the order. They followed it. They died. The least I can do is remember them." He stands, walks toward the door, pauses. "You want to know the real cost of command, Lieutenant? It's not the decision. It's carrying the names afterward. For the rest of your life." He leaves. Patterson stands alone in the classroom, looks at the chalkboard. 95,000. He finally understands what they don't teach in textbooks. 1969, Tacoma, Washington. Captain Everett Brennan retires. 30 years of service, 3 wars, 5 ships, hundreds of officers trained. The ceremony is small, a few fellow officers, his wife Margaret, their daughter Helen. The admiral, pinning on his retirement medal, asks if he wants to say a few words. Brennan says, "I did my job, that's all." Short, direct, classic Brennan. He returns to Tacoma, buys a small house on North 30th Street, not on the water, near it, close enough to see Puget Sound from the porch on clear days. Margaret asks him what he wants to do with his time. He says, "Build things, remember things." He volunteers at the Foss Waterway Seaport Museum 3 days a week, gives tours, explains how destroyers work, how depth charges work, how radar changed naval warfare. The kids ask questions. He answers, patient, precise, never condescending. One Saturday in June, a 10-year-old boy asks, "Were you ever in a battle?" Brennan says, "Yes." "Were you scared?" "Every second." The boy's eyes widen. "Really? Really? Fear doesn't mean you stop. It means you keep calculating, keep thinking, keep doing your job." The boy doesn't understand, but he'll remember it. The workshop in Brennan's garage becomes his sanctuary. He builds models, ships, precise, detailed, 1/72nd scale. He's working on USS Samuel B. Roberts. Has been for 6 years. Every rivet accurate, every gun mount exact, every detail checked against photographs and blueprints. Margaret brings him coffee sometimes, watches him work. "Why this ship?" she asks one evening. Brennan doesn't look up from the model. He's painting the tiny life rafts. Steady hands, despite being 67. "Because I need to finish what I started." "You didn't finish with Roberts." "I jumped off before she went down, left her." "That's not finishing." Margaret is quiet for a moment. "Everett, you saved 89 men. You did your job." He sets down the paintbrush. "I lost 90. You can't carry that forever." He looks at her. His eyes are tired. The same tired eyes Morrison saw at Okinawa, the same eyes his students saw at the War College. "Yes, I can, and I will." She doesn't argue. She learned years ago that Everett Brennan doesn't let go, can't let go, won't let go. He goes back to painting. On the wall above his workbench, there's a blueprint, hand-drawn, labeled Gun Mount 51. Below it a list, 90 names, handwritten, alphabetical. Anderson Charles, electrician's mate. Brennan Michael, seaman, no relation. Collins James, fireman. All the way down to Wilson Robert, quartermaster, young Thomas, machinist's mate. 90 names. He's had that list since 1944, 31 years. It's yellowed now, fragile, but every name is still legible. Sometimes late at night when Margaret is asleep, he comes to the workshop, sits, looks at the list, and he counts, making sure he hasn't forgotten anyone, making sure the math is still right. 90 died, 89 lived, 5,000 went home. The math was right, but it still doesn't feel right. September 25th, 1975. Margaret finds him in the workshop, slumped over the workbench, the model of Roberts almost finished, just the rigging left, and the final coat of paint. Heart failure. The paramedics say it was quick, probably painless. He's 67 years old. On the workbench next to the model, there's a piece of paper, fresh. Written that morning, a letter. Dear Danny, it's been 31 years. I still remember you, Gun 51, 19 years old, Iowa farm boy. Father died at Pearl Harbor. You loaded 32 rounds by yourself, 54 pounds each. I watched you do it. I couldn't help. I could only watch. I'm sorry I couldn't bring you home. I'm sorry I gave the order that killed you. I'm sorry the math said 90 had to die, so 5,000 could live. The math was right, but I'm still sorry. E. Brennan. The letter is unsigned, unfinished. Margaret folds it, puts it in her purse. She'll keep it, private. Not for Helen, not for anyone. Just a window into what Everett carried for 31 years. The cost of being right. October 25th, 2024. 80 years after the Battle off Samar. The wreck of USS Samuel B. Roberts is discovered by deep-sea explorers, 22,800 feet below the surface, 4 miles down, the deepest shipwreck ever found. The remotely operated vehicle descends, cameras, lights, high-definition video, the hull is intact, resting upright on the bottom, covered in sediment, marine growth, but recognizable, 306 feet of steel, 1,350 tons, silent for 80 years. The ROV moves along the deck, past the bridge where Brennan stood, past the smokestack, past the depth charge racks, to gun mount 51, the forward 5-inch gun, still there, still trained to starboard. The position it was in when the ship sank. The camera zooms in, the loading tray is visible, and inside it something, a shell, 54 pounds. Still there, the last round Danny Mercer was trying to load when he died. The scientists watching the video feed are silent. One of them says quietly, he never finished loading it. The Navy releases a statement the next day. The wreck of USS Samuel B. Roberts represents the highest traditions of naval service. Her crew's actions at Samar changed the course of the Battle of Leyte Gulf and saved thousands of lives. We will never forget their sacrifice. In Tacoma, at Mountain View Cemetery, someone places a small American flag on Everett Brennan's grave. No one sees who, but every year on October 25th, a new flag appears, and every year no one knows who leaves 90 pennies on the headstone, one for each man who didn't come home. The question people ask is, was Everett Brennan a hero? The answer is, he was a calculator. He saw a problem, he ran the numbers, he executed the solution. 90 men died. 5,000 lived. That's not heroism, that's mathematics. But here's what the math doesn't show: the 31 years he carried their names, the letters to 90 families, the model he never finished, the list on his workshop wall, the letter to Danny Mercer he wrote the morning he died. That's not mathematics, that's the cost. The cost of being the man who runs the numbers and keeps going. The cost of turning toward the threat when everyone else runs away. The cost of calculating that 90 lives are the price of 5,000. The cost of being right. Most of us will never face a choice like Everett Brennan faced. We'll never have to calculate whether to charge a battleship. We'll never have to decide if 90 men are worth 5,000. We'll never stand on a bridge and give an order we know will kill people we're responsible for. But if we did, if we were standing there, if the math said someone had to, could we do it? Could we give the order? And more importantly, could we carry the names afterward for 31 years, every single day, until our hearts gave out in a workshop, writing letters to dead 19-year-olds? That's the real question. Not whether you're brave enough to charge a battleship, but whether you're strong enough to live with it afterward. Everett Brennan did both. He charged the battleship, and he carried the 90 names until the day he died. The math was right, but it cost him everything. At the bottom of the Philippine Sea, 4 miles down, gun mount 51 sits in darkness. The shell is still there, 54 pounds, still in the loading tray. Waiting, like Danny Mercer waited, like Everett Brennan waited, for someone to remember, for someone to understand. That courage isn't about not being afraid, it's about calculating the cost and paying it for 31 years until there's nothing left to pay.